The NCAA Tournament Most Outstanding Player, usually given to the best player on the team that won the whole tournament. One of the biggest accomplishments you can own as a college player to solidify your legacy in the NCAA basketball history timeline. You'd be joining names like Kareem Adbul Jabarr, Jerry West, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Magic Johnson, and many, many others. But in today's video, I like to talk about the last 10 to win that award and see what their careers ended up being today. Here on the Alvini Linguini channel, where I talk about all things interesting basketball with your boy, Alvini Linguini. Now, for the people who have been here for a while, you already know how this is going to work. I'll be looking through every NCAA champion and finding the most outstanding player according to the NCAA and seeing how their career ended up after the fact, while also seeing how things were before they came into that point. The full Alvini Linguini experience. And unfortunately, due to that, this video will be long, so yeah, definitely buckle in and get yourself a big old bucket of popcorn. But before we get into this video, you already know what I have to do. The like goal of this video is the usual 1,000 likes to help support the channel. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram for channel news and updates, and follow me on my Twitch for weekly streams. But with all that out of the way, you already know who it is, Wallet!
He incurred an injury dealing with weights in the weight room, so he stitched up in the left hand doing all this.
It's over, ladies and gentlemen.
For our 2011 NCAA Most Outstanding Player, we have someone known for many moments in college, the step-back king himself, Kemba Walker. Kemba Walker, coming into college, was a 5-star recruit according to Rivals.com, while being regarded as the 14th best player in the class of 2008 and the 5th best point guard, while being behind other future NBA players like Brandon Jennings, Drew Holiday, and Tyreke Evans. When it came to recruiting, he was getting many high-tier offers college-wise, places like Memphis, Miami, Rutgers, and St. John's, but decided to go to Connecticut. At Connecticut, he would come in already playing major minutes off the bench, but when he became a starter in his sophomore year is when he started to get his name out there, mainly despite his team being rather inconsistent when it came to their record. In his sophomore season, they started off as the 12th best team in the nation, but by the end of the year, Connecticut ended up being unranked and being the 12th seed in their own conference, which makes what Kemba did in his junior year even more crazy, because we all know of Kemba's junior year being one of the wildest championship runs in the NCAA history. In Kemba's junior year, he averaged 23 points a game, which was 5th place in scoring in the NCAA, and played 37 minutes a night, which led the whole entire NCAA in playing in 150 more minutes than the 2nd place leader, which is 3.5 more games basically on foot. And the Huskies needed every single second of his play as they went and beat every non-conference opponent, which included number 2 Michigan State, where he scored 30, number 8 Kentucky, where he scored 29, and number 12 Texas, which came down to him making a game-winning shot in overtime. At one point, they was ranked as high as 4 in the country, but unfortunately, all of their losses came against conference play. But as we all know, Kemba went from getting an automatic bid for beating everybody in the B's tournament, which included this absolutely disrespectful step-back ankle breaker against Pittsburgh.
Guarded by Wanamaker with 10 seconds to go. Coombs McDaniel on the screen. Walker with 7.
Got a mismatch.
Walker on McGee with 4. Kemba Walker. Step back. Walker. Cardiac Kemba does it again. UConn wins at the buzzer.
And also beating 3rd-ranked Louisville in the finals. Now, we all know what happened with Kemba also in the actual tournament. 2 30-point games in the tournament, an epic rematch versus Kentucky, and of course him winning the championship versus Butler. Now, when you look at the stats of the tournament, it looks almost identical to what he did in the regular season, but again, he did everything that was expected of him, which won him the most outstanding player of 2011. And as we all know how his NBA career went, he became the leading scorer and 3-point scorer for the Charlotte Hornets all time, and we all know of him now as the guy who's been benched multiple times in New York right now. But let's remember him for being the 1-time All-NBA player, the 4-time All-Star, and the college legend. For the most outstanding player of the NCAA Tournament of 2012, we have a top 75 player, at least according to the NBA, known by his nickname Street Clothes, and Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis. If there is one thing Anthony Davis has over a lot of people on this list, is that he is one of the very few people who has ever won the Most Outstanding Player award in the tournament as a freshman. But coming into Kentucky, he was known as the #1 recruit of 2011, a 5-star recruit, a McDonald's All-American, the absolute trifecta. Due to that, he was able to get offers from Ohio State and Syracuse, but he decided to go to the absolute freshman powerhouse, at least what it used to be, considering what happened this year with Kentucky. Anyways, with that signing, he was brought in with other future NBA players like Michael Carter-Williams, my God, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, Marquise Teague, and Terrence Jones, who unfortunately are all three out of the league, but it'd be like that sometimes. And let's also remember that they could have been a part of this potential hazing video done to Anthony Davis. As a person who played college ball for a short time, I'm glad this didn't happen to me when I was a freshman. Anyways, he had a pretty historic freshman season with the Wildcats, averaging 14 points, 10 rebounds, and 4.7 blocks a game. As of right now, he is 4th all-time in blocks in a total season with 186. Due to that, he was able to lead Kentucky as their leading scorer consistently as the #1 team in the AP rankings, only losing once in the regular season to Indiana. And once again, they're Vanderbilt in the SEC tournament. But other than that, AD and the Kentucky Wildcats had a pretty smooth trip to the championship game, beating most teams by 10 or more. But in the championship game is where AD had some real trouble going 1 of 10 from the field for 6 points. But he did have 6 blocks in that game when they faced Kansas, who was being led by Thomas Robinson, who would join AD in the upcoming draft class. But despite that stinker of a game, he was still able to come out victorious with the most outstanding player that year as a freshman and use that hype and championship status to become the #1 overall pick of the 2012 NBA draft. And as we all know how the story continues, yada yada yada, he plays in New Orleans for nothing to happen, yada yada yada, traded to LA, yada yada yada, Mickey Mouse ring, whatever the fuck y'all want to call it, yada yada yada, he gets injuries over and over again, yada yada yada. But despite how interesting of NBA career he has had, he has made his mark in the NCAA ranks and the NBA ranks also. An 8-time All-Star, a 4-time All-NBA player, a 4-time All-Defense player, and a 1-time champion, despite how much NBA fans want to call it a Chuck E. Cheese ring. For the 2013 winner of the NCAA Tournament Most Outstanding Player Award, we have someone who is a very unexpected recipient, Luke Hancock. Now, you normally have the best player on the team win this award, but in this case, we have a very different reason. Now, up to that point, Luke was a lowly ranked prospect and didn't get any major D1 offers, and according to online sources, his only offers D1-wise was to George Mason and Toledo. But he took the George Mason scholarship in 2009 and played there for 2 seasons, mainly as a role player, and after transferring to Louisville after his sophomore year, he stayed that way. But what we didn't know is that him going to Louisville was going to be the best decision he could possibly ever make for his collegiate career. Coming to Louisville, he was met with being behind players on the team once again as a role player. The team was full to the brim with NBA talent: Peyton Siva, Russ Smith, Gorgie Jang, I really forgot to pronounce his name, and 6th Man of the Year winner Montrezl Harrell, and of course Kevin Ware. If I didn't mention him, I know a lot of people were going to blow up a comment section just because of that, so let's just go and get that out of the way right now. Anyways, on that team, Hancock was a vital bench player, playing 22 minutes a game and averaging 8 points a game while being a knockdown shooter. But in the NCAA tournament is where he really went alive. While the team was blowing out teams in the NCAA tournament by an average of 21 points before the Final Four, the Cardinals were met with the Wichita State Shockers, who had Fred VanVleet, Ron Baker, and Cleanthony Early leading the team. In that game, it was uphill battle for Louisville, being down for most of the game, but when Hancock came in the game off the bench, he caught fire, going 3 of 5 from the 3 and 5 of 7 from the free throw line for 20 points, which was second to Russ Smith, who had 21. From there, they met their final opponents, who was the Michigan Wolverines, who were filled to the brim with NBA players themselves: Trey Burke, Tim Hardaway Jr., Nick Stauskas, Glenn Robinson III, and a few others. In that game, again, he was totally needed for all the effort he could bring to the team because he scored what would be his career high at that point, 22 points off the bench and leading the team while going a perfect 5 of 5 from 3. For his performances off the bench, which was very necessary for those victories, Hancock won the Most Outstanding Player. Not the flashiest story compared to others that we'll talk about today, but definitely a feel-good one. From there, he went back for his senior year where his point per games average went up to 12 points, but after that, he didn't really see much success professionally. He only got 2 opportunities to play in the Summer League in the NBA, and even got a preseason contract with the Grizzlies where he only played in 1 game in that preseason. And after that, he only played 1 professional year in Greece where he tore his muscle in his calf that ended his career prematurely. As of now, he is an ESPN analyst with the ACC network and a co-host of a radio show. Next, for the 2014 NCAA Most Outstanding Player of the Tournament award, we have a person who didn't survive very long in the NBA and played on 6 different teams in 6 different years. The Connecticut legend himself, Shabazz Napier. Now, before coming to Connecticut, he was a 4-star recruit and a top 100 player from Massachusetts and the 19th ranked point guard in America, right behind guys like top-ranked Kyrie Irving, Brandon Knight, and NBA veteran Corey Joseph. But if you've been keeping up with college basketball, or at least listening to the video, then you'd know probably that Shabazz Napier actually was on the team with Kemba Walker as a freshman. That championship year, he averaged 7 points off the bench in 23 minutes a game, but after Kemba left, it became his team. Unfortunately though, Connecticut was still not the best team overall, starting off as the 4th best team in the NCAA in the beginning of the season to become unranked at the end. And the story was the same in his junior year after taking another jump in his stats, and they didn't even make the NCAA tournament. But in his senior year is where it all came together. Same story as it was with Kemba. Shabazz that year averaged 18 points while shooting 40% from 3. In the season overall, they didn't really make it look like they was going to win the tournament because they were all over the place when it came to rankings, and they didn't even win their conference tournament. However, just like Kemba's run, all it took was a good streak of games to win it all, since the tournament is single elimination. In the tournament, Shabazz stepped up and averaged 21 points a game while flirting with a 50-40-90 during the whole thing, beating top teams like top-ranked Florida in the Final Four by 10 and beating Kentucky, who had the usual lot of NBA talent, by 6, while he scored a game-high 22 on 8 of 16 from the field and 4 of 7 from 3. Due to that and leading his team all the way through, he won the most outstanding player of that tournament. Since then, he was drafted 24th overall by the Hornets and then traded to the Miami Heat right after LeBron went back to Cleveland. But like I said earlier, he never made much of an impact in the NBA, being on 6 different teams in 6 different years in the NBA. Being an undersized point guard and then being on the older side of ages of rookies means you have to impress fast or be out as fast as you came in, and Shabazz did not pass that test. Interestingly enough, he was playing overseas this year in Russia, only to play 2 games, and is looking to do an NBA comeback due to the situation over there. So let's hope for the best for him, for this once college champion. Well, actually, he did it twice, now that I think about it. Next, for the 2015 Most Outstanding Player from the tournament, we have Tyus Jones from Duke. Before coming there, he was the 8th best player in the US and the 2nd best point guard in that class, only behind Emmanuel Mudiay. Due to that, he got the trifecta of blue blood scholarships from North Carolina, Kentucky, and of course, Duke, the school he went to with other NBA players like Jahlil Okafor, Justice Winslow, and Grayson Allen. On that team, he was the 4th leading scorer with a stat line of 11 points, 5 assists, and a steal a game. And Duke during that season was near the top seed week by week, being the 4th best team by the end of the year. In the tournament itself, it was safe to say that they were dominant, beating teams by 10 or more in all but 2 games. They beat Michigan State in the Final Four by 20 points, which was one of the biggest score differentials in the Final Four history. But up until that point, Tyus was a pretty pedestrian, player on that team with a stat line of only 11 points on some really bad shooting splits. But in the championship game, where they faced off against the Wisconsin Badgers with Frank Kaminsky, who won the Player of the Year award in the NCAA, and Sam Deck, his own face Decker, it was safe to say that this matchup was pretty hyped up, and it was well deserved. Frank Kaminsky in that game scored 21 points and even got a double-double and multiple threes, but the hero of that game was the freshman Tyus Jones, who scored a game-high 23 points on 7 of 13 shooting and 7 of 7 from the free throw line. Due to his heroics, he won the Most Outstanding Player award as a freshman, and just like Anthony Davis, he is a part of a small list of players who have that award as a freshman. With that game alone, he was able to get his hype up in the NBA draft to be drafted at 24 by the Cavs and traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves right after. But just like Shabazz Napier, a lot of scouts didn't really see much of an upside for him as a player when it came to actually being a long-time serviceable point guard in the NBA. But Tyus has been able to survive in the league for 6 years now, being one of the few floor general point guards in the NBA, as the point guard position goes more towards scoring than facilitating. Right now with the Memphis Grizzlies, he is playing some of his best basketball, averaging 7 points and 4 assists a game. It is good to hear he was able to make use of that one game to his advantage towards his professional career, but again, he'll be known as someone who came more clutch for his team at the best time possible to win a national championship. Next, for the 2015 winner of the NCAA NCAA Tournament Most Outstanding Player, we have Ryan Arcidiacono from Villanova. Now, a common thing that Villanova does when it comes to their recruiting is that they go after high school recruits around the 50 to 75 range and have them stay for 4 years to become the best players in college basketball off of their potential. And with the way they play being a very team-oriented offense, it usually turns into some lucrative careers for people who come from there. And it is no different for Ryan, who was ranked 57th in the class of 2012 while being the 9th best point guard in the nation, behind people like Marcus Smart, Chris Dunn, and Yogi Ferrell. Ryan at Villanova was a starter from day one, and throughout his 4 years there, he pretty much played the same role. But again, that was the Villanova way. It sounds very boring, but again, that's how team-oriented basketball is, but it's always very effective. Everyone gets their touches in the offense until someone gets a good enough opportunity to take a shot, which made them a powerhouse. However, through his 4 years there, the first 3 of them fell short of a national title, losing the first round of North Carolina in his freshman year, losing to Connecticut in the second round of his sophomore year, and losing to NC State in the second round of his junior year. But after 3 years of development, Ryan and the Wildcats was able to bring it all together for a championship run. On that team was NBA talent everywhere. Himself, Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, and Donte, Big Ragu, DiVincenzo. And with that talent and team-oriented play, they was able to be the most dominant team in that tournament. In 4 out of the 6 games they played, they beat their opponents by 15 or more, and ended up being Oklahoma, who had Buddy Hield, who I think was a National Player of the Year winner at the time, by 44 in the Final Four. Again, one of the most lopsided games in the Final Four history. Then came the championship game versus North Carolina, where they faced off a team full of NBA players, even though all of them are on an active roster currently, but you get what I mean. They were good at the time. Anyways, we all know of that game as the game where Marcus Page made a very miraculous shot, with Chris Jenkins retaliating with the game-winning 3. But even then, Ryan won the most valuable player of that tournament. How did it happen? I really couldn't tell you unless I'm missing something, but he won it nevertheless. Honestly, it could have gone to him or Chris, but anyways, it was Ryan's last year in college, and he went to the NBA draft off of that. And unfortunately, he went undrafted despite his reputation that Villanova players have when it comes to playing in systems. But his career started off being a bench piece and a role player for the Bulls for 4 years. But after that tenure ended, he is still in the league, scratching and clawing for a spot back, and currently signed with the New York Knicks for a rest of the year deal. Next, for the 2016 NCAA Tournament Most Outstanding Player Award, we have Joel Berry II, who actually retired from playing basketball recently. Joel Berry was an absolute standout in Florida when it came to basketball, being the Mr. Basketball in Florida 3 times as a 6-foot guard. However, weirdly enough, he was only ranked the 30th in the country, and according to 24/7 Sports, the 3 point guards better than him were Tyler Ulis, Tyus Jones, and Emmanuel Mudiay. But unlike them, who are all one and dones except Ulis, who left as a sophomore, Joel was a 4-year player for UNC. Every year he improved statistically and moved up more on the pecking order, but his junior year is when his name started to be put more out there on the map. And before I continue, I just want to say that I talked about this entire team in a video I made about a year and a half ago, so if you'd like to watch that to get more info, be sure to do that at your own time. But anyways, this team was full of future NBA talent, even though most of them are out of the league right now. But again, at the time, it made this team very dangerous. You had the duo of Justin Jackson, who was averaging 18 points per game, and Joel, who was putting up 14. This team was top 15 in points per game in the NCAA and top 10 in offensive rating, and it showed. In that year's NCAA tournament, they beat Texas Southern by almost 40, but from there, it basically slowed down as top teams after top team was going against them round after round. The Tar Heels survived multiple close games in the Elite 8 and Final Four, and then they went against the Gonzaga Bulldogs in the finals, who had many NBA players, none of them actually worth talking about, but I'll put them on the screen. But college-wise, they were mostly beasts. Going into halftime, the Tar Heels were down 3, and then Barry and the Tar Heels turned it up and ended up winning, especially when Gonzaga melted down in the last minute with crucial turnovers. And it all came from Joel Berry scoring a game-high 22 points and leading the team throughout the whole entire tournament. Now, after that, Joel stayed for another year, but unfortunately, due to people leaving off the team, they kind of dropped off badly and then lost in the second round to Texas A&M as a 2 seed. But again, Joel Berry did get his jersey retired by North Carolina after his departure, and unfortunately did not have much success professionally. He played 2 years in the G League and a year overseas, and only played in 3 NBA games, which were all in the preseason though. As of now, he is totally retired from basketball professionally at the age of 26. For the 2018 winner of the NCAA Tournament Most Outstanding Player, we have the Big Ragu, Donte DiVincenzo. Now, once again, a lot of great role players who play in the NBA right now came from Villanova, and on this team specifically, you had Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, Eric Pascal, and Omari Spellman. But before he went to Villanova, he was a 4-star recruit, but not even a top 100 player. According to 24/7 Sports, he was ranked as the 124th ranked player in the US, but at least he can say that he was the best player in Delaware. Now, like I mentioned with Ryan Arcidiacono, Villanova never goes after top-ranked recruits like that, except that one time they got Javon Quinterly, but we don't talk about that. So this certainly goes towards the usual game plan of how Villanova recruits people, and it seemed to work out greatly because in his 3 years there, he won 2 national championships with Villanova. In his freshman year, he didn't really do much, only playing 9 games as a freshman, but Villanova plays on a next-up basis. So when a player leaves, it's your time to go over there and get a better role, and in his redshirt freshman year, he played 25 minutes off the bench. Then finally in his redshirt sophomore year is when he made himself known in the NCAA tournament. Now, in that year in particular, he was still mainly playing off the bench, but he was relied upon as a 6-man, averaging 13 points per game in 29 minutes a game, while dishing 3 assists and shooting the ball at a 40% clip from 3. Seeing this now, it makes perfect sense why he's in the league right now. But what really solidified himself as a prospect is in the championship game when they went against the Michigan Wolverines, who was full of NBA prospects themselves, with Donte going for 31 points off the bench, shooting 10 of 15 and 5 of 7 from 3. He was known as the hero for that game, and that game boosted him up on draft boards everywhere as a top-tier role player potential-wise. And that's exactly what the Milwaukee Bucks got when they drafted him 17th overall in the 2018 NBA draft. Now, as soon as he came in, he played immediately as a 3-and-D player, and he even started all 66 games that he played in his 3rd season while putting up 10 points per game. But unfortunately for him, his career so far has been riddled with injuries at every angle, even a brutal leg injury that took him out for a very long time. As of right now, he has moved on from the Milwaukee Bucks and is now a Sacramento King, where he's serving a vital bench role and being a part of a very interesting young core. For the 2019 NCAA Tournament Most Outstanding Player, we have Kyle Guy from Virginia. Now, Kyle Guy, despite being the top 35 player in the United States, was the #1 player in the state of Indiana. He received a lot of top offers from a lot of top D1 programs like Indiana, Iowa, California, and Purdue. But he ended up going to Virginia, who before he went there was a top team going into the tournament and made it to the Elite 8. So I am sure Kyle knew that he would have to work to be able to get some playing time on this team. But as a freshman, he served as a backup role and even played 7 games as a starter. Then he became a sophomore and became a full-time starter, averaging a team best 14 points on a near 40% clip from 3. Unfortunately, as we all know, the major story coming from that season for Virginia, despite them only losing 3 games the whole year, they lost to UMBC, a 16th seed, as the #1 seed, which was the first time that has ever happened in NCAA tournament history. And the worst part about it is, to top it all off, they lost by 20 points. Another major blow. But honestly, what happens next is definitely something that you would see from a movie. After losing to UMBC, Virginia, they started off the next year with a 16-game winning streak, and Kyle Guy was the leader of it. In his junior year, he averaged 15 points while shooting 42% from 3 on 7 threes a game and getting all ACC honors due to it. And in the NCAA tournament, it was full of close games after the first 2 rounds, but Kyle Guy was able to lead his team after his first 2 games that was kind of bad. But luckily, he had his teammates who were there to help. But from the Sweet 16 to the championship, he averaged 21 points on 40% from 3 a game. And in the championship game, where Virginia faced Jared Culver and Texas Tech, he scored 24 points alongside DeAndre Hunter's 27 and clutch 3s. Due to him leading the team, he won the most outstanding player in the tournament. But the thing about his pro career is that his game wasn't exactly made for the NBA. Unlike DeAndre Hunter, who was long and versatile, he was able to guard people on the NBA level and shoot the ball and become a nice 3-and-D player. But Kyle Guy's main skill is his shooting and not much else, and the fact that he's also 6 feet or 6'1" doesn't exactly help his case either, with 0 playmaking skills. But due to that, he was drafted in the 2nd round to the Knicks, but then traded to the Kings. He immediately became a 2-way player for them, mainly staying in the G League, where he averaged 21 points down there for the Stockton Kings. But since then, he has been working with the Miami Heat, where he is now a 2-way player for them. Lastly, for the 2021 NCAA Tournament Most Outstanding Player, and also remember, we didn't have an NCAA Tournament in 2020, we have the latest person to be put on this list, Jared Butler from Baylor. Now, at first, he went to Alabama off a scholarship, but did not participate in the team's summer workouts and requested an unconditional release from his letter of intent in order to transfer to Baylor, and they gave it to him. I'm not sure the specifics, but you have anything to tell me on that matter, please tell me in the comments, because honestly, that's pretty interesting to see that he can actually do that. But before then, he was regarded as the 88th best player in the class in 2018 and was the second best player in Louisiana. When he went to Baylor, he was a part of a hardcore defense based on traps and forcing teams to be uncomfortable when driving on the baseline, and Jared was a huge part of that. At Baylor, he was a 3-year starter, where at his best, he averaged 16 points, 5 assists, and 2 steals a game in his junior year, while shooting really well. Going into the tournament, they was favored as the champions to a lot of people due to their play style, and everybody was right to think so, as they dominated every team they faced against, beating every team by 10 or more. But in the NCAA championship game, he went and scored 22 points to lead the game and won the most outstanding player due to it. That game was a bloodbath due to the same defense they have always played, and unlike a lot of these guys in this video that had amazing moments, this was certainly more of a team win, forcing 14 turnovers in that game. But with his already impressive season where he earned all NCAA first team and being part of the Big 12 defensive team, he went to the 2021 NBA draft. Now, as the story goes, for a lot of people, him being older and not seeming to have that much potential NBA wise, unless you're his teammate Davion Mitchell apparently, he got drafted in the second round by the Pelicans and then was traded to the Utah Jazz, where he is now. He has only played in 35 games so far, mainly just observing the team, and I'm sure he'll be a bigger part of the rotation next year if the Jazz don't rebuild in free agency next year. But let's just see how their playoff run goes for them before we speculate way too hard. Now, in this video, we've seen many type of solo dominant performances, clutch moments when a team needed the most, and team victories. The most outstanding player in the NCAA tournament is meant to be given to the player who has played the biggest impact either in the tournament itself or in those one specific games in the finals if heroics are performed. Being on this list will immortalize you for your efforts of playing in one of the most unpredictable sporting tournaments in the United States. Even this year alone, it took only the round of 64 to totally crack everybody's brackets, so if that doesn't tell you that it's tough, then I have no idea what to really tell you. But as the tournament continues, let's just see who will be crowned as this year's champion and MVP of the tournament. But as always, I hope you enjoyed today's video and learned something new, as my vision for this channel is to inform and entertain. Check out my social medias for the inside life of Alvini and other channel news. Check out my Twitch where I stream weekly, not to go through shit like this all the time. 5 seconds. No one's doing it. And lastly, if you want to talk to your boy, there is always my Discord. Links are in the description. With all that out of the way, this is your boy, Alvini Linguini, saying peace. And I didn't know this video was going to be so long, but I hope you enjoyed it though.